Hello, everyone. I'm Janine Naus, Grief and Trauma Relief Specialist, and I'm really glad you're here with me today, whether you're joining live or watching the replay. And I want to begin with something very specific that many capable, intelligent, thoughtful people experience and often feel quietly frustrated about. You know what you want to say, you've thought through it, you've organized it in your mind. You may have even rehearsed it on the drive or over or while getting ready. And then the moment comes. You're in the meeting, you're in the conversation, you're about to set the boundary or express the disagreement. And suddenly you freeze. Your voice tightens, your mind blanks, or you hear yourself say, it's fine, even when it's not. Later, sometimes minutes later, sometimes hours later, the words come back, clear, confident, exactly how you wished you had said them. And you think, why couldn't I say that in the moment? If that feels familiar, I want to say this gently. This is not a communication failure. It's not weakness, and it's not that you don't know what you want. Something else is happening in that moment. And today we're going to look at what actually happens in the freeze response and how your voice begins to return safely. So let's begin by reframing something very important. Freeze is not weakness, it's not immaturity, it's not lack of preparation, and it's not that you've suddenly lost your intelligence. Freeze is a nervous response or nervous system response. And when speaking up has historically led to conflict, dismissal, emotional escalation, being misunderstood, or even subtle punishment like withdrawal or criticism, your body learns something very specific. Visibility can create risk, and speaking up is visibility, even if the room is calm, even if the relationship seems stable, even if logically you know you're allowed to speak. Your nervous system doesn't evaluate situations through logic first, it evaluates through memory and safety patterns. So, in that moment, when you're about to assert yourself, your body may interpret exposure as potential danger. And freeze is what happens when the system decides, let's reduce movement, let's reduce intensity, let's minimize visibility. It's protective. Freeze is not passive, it's strategic. It temporarily lowers your profile in order to prevent escalation. And that's why the freeze response often activates right after at the moment of expression, not during preparation. You can think clearly beforehand and you know exactly what you want to say. But when the body senses exposure, speech can tighten, thoughts can scatter, or your system may default to keeping the peace. This is not a personality flaw, it's a conditioned safety response. And once we understand that, we can move into the next layer. Why your voice tends to get interrupted at the exact point of visibility. So once we understand that freeze is protective, the next layer becomes clear. Your voice doesn't disappear randomly. It gets interrupted at the exact moment of exposure. And there's usually a split second right before you speak when something shifts internally. You're about to disagree, about to set a boundary, about to clarify something that matters. And your system registers, I'm about to change the dynamic. I'm about to be visible. I'm about to risk disapproval. If at any point in your past speaking up led to conflict, rejection, dismissal, or emotional escalation, even subtly, your nervous system learned to associate expression with threat. So instead of asking, is this conversation safe? Your body asks, has visibility been risky before? And if the answer is yes, even historically, your system steps in. And you might feel your throat tighten, your breath shorten, your thoughts scatter, your tone soften, or the sudden urge to say, it's fine. That interruption isn't weakness, it's conditioning. And many trauma survivors learn that staying agreeable, minimizing needs, or avoiding friction to reduce harm. So even when you consciously want to speak, your body may still equate silence with safety. And that's why telling yourself to just be more confident doesn't solve it. Because this isn't a skill deficit, it's a safety reflex. And if the interruption is happening at the level of safety, then rebuilding your voice won't come from pressure. It will come from helping your body feel secure enough to stay present while speaking. And that's where your voice begins to return. Not louder, not forced, but steady. Which brings us to the final piece. So if your voice gets interrupted at the level of safety, then rebuilding it won't happen through force. And it won't come from telling yourself to be stronger. It won't come from rehearsing harder. And it won't come from criticizing yourself afterwards. Your voice returns through felt safety. And felt safety is different from logical safety. You may intellectually know a room is safe, but your body has the experience safety while you're speaking, not just before or after. That learning happens gradually, and it can start in smaller moments. Lower stakes conversations, pausing before responding instead of rushing, letting your breath settle before finishing a sentence, allowing a brief silence instead of filling it with to ease tension. When your body experiences that you can express something and nothing harmful happens, no escalation, no rejection, no emotional collapse, your nervous system updates its expectations and it begins to learn. It can be visible and remain safe. That doesn't mean you'll never feel activation again. It means activation doesn't automatically shut you down. Your voice becomes steadier, not louder, not sharper, just present. And this is important. Reclaiming your voice isn't about becoming confrontational, it's about staying connected to yourself while you speak. That's a skill. And skills can be rebuilt, which brings us to how we close today's conversation without pressure and without judgment. So if you've ever walked away from a conversation thinking, I should have said something, I knew what I wanted to say, I don't know why I shut down. I want you to hear this clearly. You didn't fail. Your body chose protection, and protection patterns are not permanent. They're learned responses that can softly soften when safety increases. I want to thank you for joining me in today's healing step session and for exploring something that affects relationships, work, boundaries, and self-respect in very real ways. If this conversation brought recognition, even quietly, that matters. Awareness is the first shift. And if you like a calm, private space to explore where your voice feels interrupted and begin rebuilding expression without forcing yourself, I offer healing clarity sessions. They're gentle one-on-one conversations that are free, not therapy. I'm a life coach, not a therapist, and there's no diagnosing or fixing involved. It's simply space to understand what happens in those moments and how to move forward differently in one specific area of your life. No pressure, no urgency, just a steady place to think clearly and reconnect to your voice. And whether you take that step or simply leave today with more compassion for yourself, both are meaningful. Your voice was never gone. It learned when to protect you, and it can learn when it's safe to return. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.